talk about non-duality, non-separation and oneness. Which we all know already. We all know we are one. It's blindingly obvious. And yet somehow not. Not in the way that we often live our lives. Not in the way we experience life. In fact, just that experience of life sometimes can feel like life itself is other than us. As if we're not part of that, as if it's an option. We can come with conditions like, if life is like that, then I'm out of here. As if we're not made of life, as if we're not inseparable from life. As if we had it within our living power to extinguish life, as if something could negate or undo itself. Something created could uncreate itself. It's like the sunlight saying, I've had enough of sunlight, I'm going to cancel sunlight. As sunlight, I'm now going to cancel sunlight. And yet we live as if that's possible, as if conflict was within our power, as if conflict was something which will lead us somewhere. And it does lead us somewhere, conflict. It leads us to more conflict. And sometimes the conflict with life can become very, very alive. Because there's a lot of shaking it makes a lot of noise, you know, so it actually achieves the opposite. It's a little bit like the conflict with anger. Like, I never get angry because I'm British. So if you ever want to experience real anger, so strong that you can literally inhale it together with the carbon monoxide on the London Underground, go there. That's where you get your anger, with the in-breath and with the out-breath, because there is such a deep conflict, often collectively, with anger. And it makes it become very, very alive, so alive that it's dead. It's noticeable by its density, this great passive aggression. You know, other countries complain when they find something wrong in the shop. British people just don't ever go there ever again. You know, it's like cancellation culture. Which is all right. You know, we all have our forms of how to screw ourselves over by fighting the impossible cause of fighting with fighting itself, being in conflict with conflict, being alive and in conflict with life, being angry and using anger to conflict with anger, being peaceful and trying to kind of dumb down the sense of peace to some kind of not alive thing, which is a little bit like rest in peace, you know, like soulless. So we have an interesting relationship with the actual lived experience of unity, of oneness. And one place where we tend to kind of make the oneness a rather kind of tedious, ongoing field of conflict, where it's not that interesting. It's just this kind of white noise that goes between radio stations, just conflict, 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 where we tend to lose our living connection with unity, is where we go into this area of like thinking it's possible to pick and choose. This is me and this is not me. You're with me or you're against me. If I don't like something, that means I negate it from my world. I don't choose for it. And that means it never exists for me, but it does exist for me. So I've got a conflict with it. It exists for me enough for me to not like it and for me to take it, especially and say this outside. So actually it is more, that one thing I have a conflict with is more part of my world, and all the other things I have no conflict with. So in this dance, which seems sometimes like the only way to live, perpetual conflict, we can often lose our sense of being here unconditionally in freedom beyond conflict. We can feel like, you know, we are the provocation of all the conflict. It doesn't feel safe anymore. It doesn't feel like it's okay for us to completely like just shine our light and for it not to be a conflict, because everything is conflict. And this causes an enormous amount of suffering. And partly why we have this sense of conflict is because we're one, but we're not the same, to use a cheesy line. Even though we're one, even though I see you completely as myself looking back at me, the form which I'm looking out through, my binoculars are different from your binoculars in this moment. It's the same one looking maybe, but it's the way it looks is creating another reality. And maybe that reality is a little bit in conflict with my reality. You're seeing a room full of people, men in purple shirts. I'm seeing a room full of sleeping cats. Because you've got a conflict with men in purple shirts. I've got a conflict with cats. I don't, but I really don't, Betty. So our realities are not the same. And there's something about this principle of unity, which can be a little bit, and how it's been put on us as a moral obligation. Don't you know, we're all one, and all for one and one for all. And we all have to go and fight for the motherland. And, you know, we all have to think the same thing, and we all have to agree in the same way, and we all have to behave the same way. So part of this conflict is this pressure on us, this forcing of a form onto us, that we have to be kind of uniformly human. And who decided what human is before ever having really experienced it? Not us. We have a fresh beginner's soul to this human experience. We didn't decide that what human is. It's somehow demanded of us. And then when we become exceptional to the rule, we find ourselves to be that one kid in the class that tells the teacher she's being very boring. Then we find we're in trouble. There's suffering, there's pain there. There's pain in being different. It's dangerous to be honest, to be ourselves. And then when we are excluded or rejected, it can feel like we are other than the whole. There's this sense of otherness, alienation, estrangement, not fitting in, not belonging, the odd one out, the misfit. So this sense of otherness begins to be alive, very close to our essence, very close to our uniqueness. You know, unique and unity, they're the same root word. It's uni, universe, university, unique, unity. It's all about inseparability. But somehow now we've got in this uniqueness of ourselves, our unique experience, the unique way we experience love, the unique way that we experience care, either caring towards another or being cared for. The unique way that we suffer, the unique way we experience pain. It's all unique. That somehow this makes us other. It puts us to a dangerous place. Otherness is now a little bit feeling like a punishment maybe, or a humiliation, or a cancellation. Dangerous. And that's very, 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 very difficult for a little child, for example, to experience, or a small animal, because it's very dangerous to be thrown out of the tribe, to be thrown out of the herd. So this otherness began, this othering to other somebody can begin to be a little bit of a weapon of control. And it's always better that somebody else is the other one, is the anomaly, is the misfit. That we disappear in the group, if it's going to be like that. If that's how things go, then we have a few challenges ahead for bringing our soul, our unique soul. Soul made up of all the same components of every other soul, and yet uniquely formulated. The formation of our spiritual individuality, letting it be here in the world. Tricky. And it doesn't help to find another soul which is making a good job of it, and to like copy them and say, okay, how does this teacher do it? Let me do what he does. Because no matter how hard we try to do what he does, he is him and we are us. We don't have an option to do it somebody else's, to express somebody else's soul, somebody else's unique flavor. Because although we are one, we're not the same. Our holy teacher or role model has his or her own unique ancestry, patterning of pain, patterning of experiences, a spiritual mastery of how to bring love into this world. If you just take the karma around love that moves through families, how to be free in the heart here, passed on from generation to generation. How can we open our hearts here as a learning, as a lesson, and each one with their own insights of where we suffer with this, what doesn't work so good, and what works a bit better, which is completely different from our family's unique mastery that we're bringing, the vibration of love and learning and lessons, which came through at the cost of the suffering of generations behind us, which we now have to offer into the world, into the whole, because we are one. We can't do somebody else. Conformity does not bring unity. Uniformity doesn't bring unity. It can bring relief for a while from the sense of otherness that we suffer inside, the sense of being separate, being isolated, being so bloody lonely. It can bring some relief for a while. We can imprint it on us and we can experience something of the magic of being somebody else, but then we always get ourselves back again. And then there's a kind of merging of the two, which is again unique. So this sense of otherness begins to matter enormously. And it's what was a kind of violence. This is other than me, a kind of wall, a kind of rejection, or what at once felt like a rejection towards our soul, or our mind, or our heart, or our body, or our naturalness. If we can begin to move towards just the sense of otherness, which is appearing within the field of unity, which we all know, because we're not separate from each other, we share this experience of otherness. So if we can move towards it, rather than fear it, so rather than being chased by it, like there's a great big monster of exclusion, death, and utter and total soul annihilation chasing us, to actually say, you know what? Come. You're an experience. I'm curious about you. I want to know what you feel like, otherness. Where do I find you? Where do I really find this sense of otherness? And what's it about? What's it about on this side of the equation when I feel myself to be other? What's that experience? to be other to myself. And what's it about on the other side of the equation when I feel that everything outside of my skin is other than me? What's this magical curtain of otherness between this and that? So where do we find it? So we're now turning around in our nightmare and we're moving towards it. Okay, otherness. I decided I quite like you. There's something about you which actually could be worth making friends with. Anyway, I've run from you for thousands of years, or light years maybe, but now I'm going to move towards you. Just a feeling of otherness. I don't even know what's on the other side of otherness. I'm going to be one with you, otherness. This sense of otherness. It's tricky because the sense of otherness can begin to run away from us. It can be hard to catch its tail. It's a little bit fearful. And partly what we need to find it is to move into the world of objects. Because if I somehow fell asleep and believed I was an object, a thing, an object, then only then is it possible to have another object other than this object. So I am this entity, this objective thing. I need that in order to have another other than me. I need a me in order to find other than me. So let's go with that for a while, because, when we're not trying to be holy and stuff and we're just living our normal life, it happens quite naturally. It's a habit. So let's go with that for a while. I'm an object. I am this dude that lives in Israel, and whatever story I want to pin onto this object, how I want to recreate myself in this moment. And out there is other than me. Something which doesn't feel like it's in the unity of all that I am. So how far do I have to go? How far shall we go? So maybe we go to the end of the universe. Somewhere utterly into the unknown, beyond the furthest reaches of the universe. There must be something there. Beyond the known universe. To find other. You just step over the cliff edge of the known. Far, 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 far away, and some more. No stars, no Milky Ways, that's all known. Beyond concept. And see if we can find the sense of otherness there. If it feels like. If there's anything there which is not me, or you, or us, not I. Whatever I see there, whatever I feel there, whatever I think there, whatever I experience there, whatever appears out of the unknown as a formation in my consciousness. Is it not I? Is it I? Is it other than I? So that's okay, we can find unity there. That's doable. That's doable. There's not a lot in the way. Because anyway, it doesn't seem that real because it's so far away. It seems like it's not that threatening, is it? It's not really grating the teeth and sending shivers up the spine. Okay, so we come closer. Let's come in a bit, find the sense of otherness. Can we find otherness in the moon? When we think about the moon, we look at the moon so often, almost sometimes as if it's two-dimensional, like a sticker on a plate. But it's a ball, it's suspended in space, reflecting light, with a whole reality of its own, a whole geography, a whole history, a whole atmosphere. Can we find otherness there? And if we find otherness there, what happens when we softly open up to the sense of otherness in the moon? Where is this sense of otherness? Is it in us or is it in the moon? Or is it in the consciousness, like an awakening movement or a freshness of perception? It's like, moon actually really, really, really is there right now, moving in ways which are geniusly harmonious unto itself. But still, it's other than me in my the real life. Reality is not really about the moon, is it? Not unless you're deeply into astrology and stuff. It's, and then, it's questionable whether you belong. Reality is actually much more what we feel in the daily habitual commonplace. So let's come closer. We come closer. Let's land a little bit into the blue sky. We've gone beneath the ozone, woofer. Now we're under the skin of our world, beneath the ozone. The feeling for the sense of otherness in the space between the earth and the ozone, in the blue sky, the familiar blue sky. So while it might seem very undisturbingly unified to us when we look up at it from down below, what is it like when we're above it? When we're moving through the clouds? When we look for the blue sky and we can't actually find an object? Different perspectives, different points of view, other points of view. It's kind of liberating, this otherness. Now we have all these other points of view coming forward. Looks a little bit, smells a little bit like freedom. To be able to see things or to feel things or to taste things or to listen to things, to touch things from another point of view. How does the blue sky feel to a bird? Does she feel safer in the blue sky or safer in a tree? Where does she find her home? If I was a bird, if you were a bird, where is elsewhere? Where is distance? Where is home? Where is the adventure into the strange other land? And where is the security, the homecoming? So one person's heaven is another person's hell. Our deep little town, our village with our garbage men and our grocery store and our bus line isn't really that inviting to the sense of home to a bird. It's a little bit other. Maybe, a big truck going past her when she's trying to pick up some breadcrumbs. So we come closer, we come closer, we come closer, and we can come closer to the earth herself. The earth who, while we totally and absolutely take her for granted and depend on her, we don't trust her for shit because she's other than us, right? Sometimes we look a little bit like a virus on the earth. We're attacking ourselves. It's like we have a conflict with the earth that we're made of, with the atoms, with the molecules, with the minerals, with our deepest ancestry. Which we're made of. It's so easy to kind of have this otherness come forward and say, okay, so that doesn't belong here. That's not for me. So the body, the sense of being physically alive, animalistically, solidly here in a physical body right now with sweat and blood and tears and moisture and heat and rhythms of heartbeats and breathing in and out and mucus and the whole show. This is other than me. What is this? It's completely out of control. It's other. So again, we open up softly, 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 move towards the sense of otherness. Or let the sense of otherness really move through us. Not kill or be killed, but blend with the sense of otherness between ourselves and our body. Something is awakening. There's an awakening happening out of the sense of otherness. An awakening which is also this and also this and also this. It's almost enough ingredients for a full-blown universal experience. I'm also the sky. I'm also the earth. I am also the body. I'm also me, and I'm also not me, and I'm also not the body. And it's all an experience, and I'm also able to experience, and I'm also conscious of this experience. And what on earth is that? Is that consciousness other than I? Going to get me a bit of consciousness from the outside? Get me ration of consciousness? What's this alienating, strange consciousness that sometimes can make us feel so ashamed? Is it other than me? Other than the mind, other than what's in control? What is this otherness there? So can we be soft again and open up to the sense of otherness? What is it? How is it running with its own particular wisdom and grace through the field of unity as an expression of unity? How is this sense of otherness inviting us maybe towards unity, realizing unity, discovery, unfolding, revelation, curiosity, which we talked about last week. And then somewhere along the line, we can stop this whole game and we say, okay, back to normal life, back to the commonplace, back to the everyday habitual things. So what is it really? Let's take all the masks off. What is it really, this sense of otherness? Where is it really showing up? Where do we need our aggressive otherness? Not the one which is an invitation to unity, but where do we keep using it as a weapon, as a tool of conflict, as a way to get ourselves believing in separation in an absolute way, such that the unity is now broken. There is this unity, the good people, and over there is everything else. What's really causing this violence to move through the field of our experience? How are we abusing ourselves? And why? What's the cause of that? And then it becomes very, very, very tender in a way. And we need a lot of openness and patience and softness and gentleness to be able to open up to those places where we cannot bear the oneness, where we lose all compassion, where we lose all mercy, where we lose all care, where we become loveless. So much so that we would build a whole sub-universe of conflict on top of the unity. Because we can't get rid of the unity, but we can sure as hell obscure it and confuse ourselves into whole dramas. So these areas where we make something which is other than I and at war with myself, something which cannot be here, cannot be allowed to be here, something, maybe it's evil, maybe it's a form of abuse that leads us to this self-abusive behavior, a form of suffering, a form of cruelty that leads us to this cruel behavior. Maybe it's a form of violence which shocked us and hurt us so much that the suffering we witnessed caused us to other violence and anything associated with it. As if we could do that. You know, the whole universe was created by violent events, not cruel events, that comes later, but big bangs, moons colliding, supernovas, black holes, lots of power moving all at once, scattering everything in all directions. But we want to take the violence out of the universe, we would lose the whole universe up to the furthest reaches. The whole thing would collapse. And who are we in our arrogance to think we can take the violence out? So compassion doesn't say that something has to be good in order to be part of the unity. Compassion isn't an idiot. Compassion says it's enough that something is here, that we are responsible for it within the unity. So we move towards it, not away. We don't delude ourselves into this place of believing that we can undo through our own force of ignorance or cruelty or rejection what anyway is here. And why is that compassionate? Why is it compassion to move towards a place of extreme abuse, the energy of cruelty? Why is it compassionate to move towards it? There's nothing okay about cruelty. Evil, nothing okay about evil. Why would we be compassionate towards evil? Isn't compassion needed or lots of other places? So where is compassion most needed? It's where the suffering is the strongest, right? So where is the suffering the strongest? So in the middle of this field of total suffering, we want to go there and we want to take the experience and say, okay, the one that does the evil, and I'll decide somehow that it's their fault, I chuck away and doesn't have a place in the unity and doesn't have a right to exist and shouldn't be here in this reality. And the victim, I keep. But the moment we did that, we totally abandoned the whole field of suffering, including any victim. So we did evil to the victim again. We excluded him or her or them or it from the unity. You know, it's a little bit like seeing a shoreline devastated by an oil spill. Devastated by an oil spill. And running to cancel all the oil companies, blow them up, as if that could help the shoreline devastated by the oil spill. It's a way to resist taking in the effect, the suffering area, which is the most direct place where our compassion is needed. After that will come the wisdom and the understanding of how to move to prevent these things happening in the future. But if we bypass, if we think we can dictate realities, we can disunite, divide, division on the basis of our likes and dislikes, our comfort zones, then we come into trouble so often. We hurt ourselves. We hurt ourselves because we are one. And every victim becomes a perpetrator, and every perpetrator becomes a victim. And there is always a oneness. It doesn't mean it's pleasant. It's not about saying this is good and okay and we should let it happen. It's about a kind of sense of truth, sense of reality, sense of like realism. But realism in the deeper sense of consciousness. Why would we believe that we can make something not like it, not be there? That we dictate what's in and what's out. It's interesting that what's inside the word division is vision, the opening of the eyes, the inner sight, the outer sight, where the inner sight and the outer sight become one, and it's one sight, one consciousness. But with this DI in front of it, we've got this splitting of vision. this fragmenting of perception. So when somebody starts to fragment their perception and their left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and the head is saying one thing, and the heart, which is other than the head, is doing and feeling another, and the body is actually trying to stand on its head. What do we do with them? We say, okay, this person is totally other, they're crazy, they're completely mad, they've lost all functioning, they're hardly human, let's lock them up outside of the field of unity. So while the experience of differentiation, of uniqueness is part of the beauty and interdependence of all creation within this field of oneness, this violence that we do out of this innocent energy of otherness, this is a good place to look for a change in attitude towards that experience of otherness. It's a kind of fear. There's also a kind of awakening. It's a kind of learning. If something's other, we didn't know it before. Something new is happening. There's a discovery, there's an adventure, and being born in whatever it is, being born here is always an adventure for the soul. The soul is waiting to experience what it is possible to experience as unity through the filter of this human body, through the incredibly rich ancestry of Earth. This living body right here, right now, in which the past is not other to this body here now. It's at one with the here and now. The future is not other to this body here and now. The source of all life, whatever that is, the magic, the genius of life, whatever that is not other than this life expressing now through this form, these formations of you. So isn't the soul ready to experience the otherness of that, the suchness, the thatness, the miracle, a little bit of miracle, drop by drop, not all at once. The caress of experience, the surprise, the intrigue, the flavors of love as they break into the human world, the flavors of peace as they come through in a new way in this moment. The rhythms of togetherness and care through all forms of life here, in this moment, changing, unfolding, uniquely, differentiating. Doesn't the soul want to play a part in that? To come close, to come directly in contact with that, even to touch it, to become one with it. To become one with the moment of whatever is being felt. And the next one, and the next one. And all the great big moment behind all the little moments. The preciousness of that.